I don't have my hats. There you go. All right, let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I am with...
Justin Mathews.
Justin who?
Justin Mathews.
A dear old friend of mine, also a good musician friend of mine, that owns about a gazillion guitars, a full-blown recording studio in his basement, with a way better mic pre than I do, but I still love him, and here he is tonight with us. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to be asking you a couple questions.
Okay.
Here's our first one for you. When and why did you start playing? And what do you play?
I mostly play bass or guitar lately. I guess I started playing music as a kid. I was, I would guess 6 or 7 years old. My sister was taking lessons on an electric organ, and apparently I kept getting in the way. My parents told me about this a few times later. I don't really remember it this way, but I guess she would be sitting on the bench taking her lessons, and I would be kind of pushing my way in there, trying to do the same thing, trying to put my hands on the keyboard and my feet on the pedals. So they decided they should just have separate lessons for me. And I took lessons with that instructor until I was in high school sometime. And then I switched to her boss. And then after a couple of years, I just went and did my own thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about this? Why doesn't McDonald's sell hot dogs?
How do you know they don't? What do you think is really in those chicken McNuggets? Neither of them are real meat.
Not hot dogs.
Yeah, it's not chicken either. If you've got two things that are both falsely advertising themselves as meat, and neither of them is really food, are they really fundamentally different from each other, or is the chicken McNugget actually a hot dog with breading?
You can't answer a goddamn question with a question, Justin. So I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. But nonetheless, it's Justin's answer, and it's your answer. So there you go.
That's my answer.
How about this? And I know you're a big movie goer, and you go to the Toronto Film Festival every year, watch like a week of movies and such. When you go to the movie theater, which armrest is yours, the left or the right?
Usually both.
You greedy bastard, you.
So it depends on how busy the film is, or how popular the film is. If it's Caroline and I sitting together and we've got an empty seat on either side of us, I tend to take both. And she will sometimes take my arm and link our arms together because I've taken the armrest.
Aww.
Yeah. But if there's someone sitting on the other side of me that isn't Caroline, then it probably depends on which one of us is bigger.
How about this? I know you've been in a couple bands. How did you come up with the name of your bands?
Well, the last couple of band names came from other people in the band. So the last band I was in only lasted a couple of months. We were called Fleetwood Crack, and I think they had the name before I had met any of them, because the first email that I got had that as a subject line. The previous band was eventually called the Broken Headboards, and that was something that I think our guitarist came up with as a side effect of the t-shirt business he started. So he had started a t-shirt business all about dick t-shirts. And what I mean by that is he had actually written software that would generate t-shirts based on having the letters D and B lowercase beside each other. And so, if you put those two together, it kind of looks like ASCII art for a dick. and 2 balls. And so he discovered that broken headboards gives you, in the headboards part, gives you that image. And I think he decided that was a good band name. So that replaced our previous band name, which was Tunings for Pussies. That one I did come up with, mainly because his other band, when we were playing shows together, they spent so much time tuning, and Aaron and I would get drunk and start calling them pussies, and it seemed natural to say Tunings for Pussies. It's not a great story. But, that's the last band name I came up with that actually stuck for a while.
There you go. Do they have the word dictionary in a dictionary?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
Because I know things.
Okay. For the record, Justin is one of the most... he's one of the smartest person I know, so I'm not going to argue any of his answers tonight. Not only are we, at least I'm licked. I don't know about him, but he's on his way there, I guess. So I'm not going to argue anybody's answers tonight, especially this guy. So there you go. You heard it from the horse's mouth there. How about this then? Do vegetarians eat animal crackers? I stumped him.
I think it depends on how strictly vegetarian they are. So plain old vegetarians would. Vegans would probably say that it has the soul of the animal that it embodies, and therefore you can't eat it.
What was the first tune you learned ever?
Merrily We Roll Along, which was kind of like Mary Had a Little Lamb. It was the first thing that I learned how to play on the organ.
Is there a time limit on fortune cookies?
Yeah. Death.
A very Spock-like answer from Justin Mathews. Is your family musical at all?
No. I don't know where I got it, but my immediate family has no real signs of any artistic talent. I mentioned earlier that my sister had taken music lessons.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't care for it. She wasn't bad at it, but she had no passion for it. She once inadvertently pissed me off. I don't think she even knew about it at the time, when we were listening to something on the radio and she cut off the song and switched to something else when the song wasn't yet over. And I questioned her on this, and I was like 10 years old, 12 years old, something young enough that, I was bothered by this but couldn't articulate why. And her answer for why she switched away from it was, well, the song was over. I said, of course, no, it wasn't. Yeah, all the singing had stopped. And I didn't know how to explain it to her at the time, but that kind of sold it for me that she doesn't really get music. For her, it was just a way for a random set of words to be conveyed, but I always thought that it's all one package. The words go with the music.
Interesting. How about this? If vampires can't see the reflection in the mirror, why are their hair always so neat?
Because the blood of unborn fetuses slicks it down really nicely.
Jesus Christ. Wow. Since bread
in my head, that started out as placenta, but it came out as blood.
Oh, that is the weirdest goddamn answer I've ever got. How about this? And I can't wait to hear the answer to this. Since bread is square, why isn't sandwich meat like square? Why is it all fucking round?
Well, some of it is. The mustard seed salami that Sobeys will sell is square, but it's still a smaller square than the bread. I bet it's the physics of creating each of these. So when you're making a salami, the little tube-like thing that it gets extruded out of is a lot easier to design as a cylindrical device. And when you put the casing on, a square casing is going to get filled into a round shape anyway. But when you're making a loaf of bread, you need it to sit on the bottom of the oven, or it's just going to fall over and spill everywhere because your dough is still kind of not really solid yet. So it needs at least a flat bottom.
You have fucking clearly think about this before. Like, seriously. Or if you've watched some of these episodes, I don't know, but...
Time travel. I've actually seen you post this video already. I went back and thought about my answers in advance.
I suspected something like that. You sneaky bugger, you. How about this? Which famous magician do you admire and why?
Well, you, of course. But I assume you mean besides
me, yes.
I don't know. Tom Waits comes to mind.
Good choice.
I think so. So he's withstood the test of time, and what I mean by that, in my head anyway, is that a lot of the other musicians that I grew up listening to or first heard a little later in life, they do one thing really well, and that's probably why they become one of my favorites. He does many things really well, and he seems to be constantly changing himself. But unlike other artists that change themselves, he changes himself in interesting ways and actually successfully sounds good every time he does it. So I know a lot of people would probably hate me taking shots at Bowie, but some of his alter egos felt a little forced and weren't as interesting as other things he did. I think he had a very varied career, had a lot of ups and downs. But Tom Waits is one of those people where he's consistently gotten better or gotten more interesting. I do think his early stuff was a little bit weak, and that album with Crystal Gale, couldn't make myself listen to it a third time. But those were early on, and the growth that seems to happen with every new release is always interesting, always challenging to the musical sensibilities of the listener.
There you go. Brilliant answer by a brilliant man right there. Justin Mathews.
Woo!
Hey, can you cry underwater?
Me personally?
I don't know. Do you think it's physically possible?
I do think it's physically possible.
You're a freaking Vulcan, so I know you don't cry.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. I certainly think it's possible, because crying isn't just about the tears coming down your cheek. You could also ask, can you cry without gravity to pull the water away from your eyes? And the answer is yes. I think there was actually an experiment when Chris Hadfield was on the ISS where they showed what happens if you cry in space. And the water just kind of pools up around your eyes. Doesn't mean you're not crying because it's not running down your cheek. Same thing, well, not the same thing, but a similar behavior would happen underwater. The water's not running down your cheek in any visible way. It's actually just going to disperse into the pool around you. But the emotional response will be there. The tear ducts will still be excreting. So crying is more the internal action rather than the external observation. So yes, you can cry underwater.
By far, the most goddamn detailed answer I've ever got for this question. Thank
Were you
you.
just looking for a yes and no?
No, well, no. It's you run the show, really.
All right.
What are your fondest musical memories? Or memory? Pick one.
Fondest musical memory. I don't know. Fondest memory of seeing music live, I think, was the first time I saw Leonard Cohen back in grade 11, maybe grade 12, somewhere around there. I'd been a fan of his for years, like mostly all through high school. When he played on his The Future tour, friend of mine got tickets and we all went to see him in London, and seeing him on stage, hearing the the passion behind his voice and the strength of his lyrics in person was very powerful.
So, would you say you were influenced by old records, tape, CDs, digital download? Like, which ones?
Yes. All of them.
There you go.
I don't really have a favorite format. It's just whatever happens to have the music that I like. I actually own a turntable originally because I wanted to buy a particular Kid 606 recording, and as far as I could tell, it was only available on vinyl. So I bought the vinyl at the show, and then the next day went to a pawn shop and found a turntable.
Nice. Who was or is your favorite musician, and why?
Well, that guy playing the 8-string guitar that we were looking at on YouTube earlier was pretty cool.
So for you people that don't know what we just did before the podcast here is I stupidly bought an 8-string guitar on Kijiji about a year ago because of this one kid named Tosin Abasi from Animals as Leaders. So I introduced Justin to him earlier tonight, which introduced me to a 9-string guitar that I didn't even know existed. And then it kind of snowballed into more YouTube shenanigans. But yeah, Tosin Abasi, if you guys don't know who that guy is, I would highly, highly suggest checking him out. So, yeah. That's my answer, and that's your answer, I guess?
I guess. I don't really have any specific musicians that that come to mind. It's been kind of varied throughout my last 40 years. You know, when I was a kid, I remember listening to Corey Hart's Boy in the Box and Michael Jackson's Thriller, and we had those records around the house, and I really liked them. When I was a teenager, I got really into industrial music. I used to love all of the stuff on Wax Trax Records, to the point where I would even buy stuff that was from that label, having never heard it, because I trusted that everything that was coming from this label sounded so good. So that wasn't so much a single musician I admired, it was a whole collective, I suppose. Though it turned out that Paul Barker and Al Jorgensen were in 90% of those bands anyway. I guess Paul Barker was a musician I admired back then.
Where is Paul from, for people that don't know?
He was the bass player in Ministry, Revolting Cocks, Lead and Gold. He was in Pigface at one point, but so was everybody except me. Yeah, indeed. I don't know. Played in a bunch of things.
How about this? How do you handle mistakes during a performance?
Just keep going. Pretend it didn't happen. Make it look like you did that on purpose, and just keep playing.
And do you get nervous before you play a live show?
Not the last several years. I mean, the shows that I've been playing have all just been like parties where my friends are most of the attendees. I think when I first started playing in public as a teenager, I would get nervous, but I also had a bit of an attitude where, you know, fuck the audience, I don't care what they think, so why should I care if I suck in front of them? Mm-hmm. And that helped me not be nervous.
Very good answer. Why don't you ever see baby pigeons?
Because we eat the eggs before they have a chance.
Have you... What?
I don't know. I've never seen a pigeon egg. I probably have. I've seen unidentified eggs, so they could have been pigeons. What do you mean you never see baby pigeons?
You don't see baby pigeons.
Maybe you don't see baby pigeons.
Have you?
Probably.
I mean, what kind of probably is? That's not an answer.
Well, I don't specifically remember a baby pigeon image in my head that I've seen recently, but I'm sure I must have seen them at some point.
So you're saying that your brain is faulty?
Probably.
Really?
Yeah.
You're admitting this publicly for the YouTube folks?
Yes.
Wow.
And anyone who thinks their brain isn't faulty is lying.
To themselves?
To everybody.
Yes. Very rational answer. Again, from Mr. fucking Spock over here.
Nanu. Am I doing it right?
So what advice would you give to a beginner that's starting to playing gig and get nervous and whatnot? Do you have any kind of words for these kids? Take it easy on them.
If you sound good, there's no need to be nervous. If people aren't into it, there's probably something wrong with them.
There you go. How about you tell us about your last great revelation?
My last great revelation?
Other than Tosin Abasi. It's not. It doesn't have to be about music. It could be about life. It could be about fucking vegetable garden in front of your place in Waterloo. I don't know. Anything.
I don't know if I've had a great revelation. The garden seems kind of intuitive. You put things in the ground, they grow. I guess I had some work revelations. My company recently announced that we were doing an 11%, 12% layoff, something like that. And there was about a 12-hour window from when it was announced until when I was told that my office was not being affected. And in between there, I realized, I could be doing something else. I'm not tied to this company, even though I've been there since 2004, which for now is, I guess, 12 years. So I guess that was the revelation that companies aren't loyal to people. People are loyal to people. My boss probably wouldn't let me go.
Well said, actually, yeah.
I don't think my boss would let me go, but I think my company would have no problem letting me go.
So I know a lot of my friends and a lot of people are going to be watching this are all tech people. So for them tech people, what credentials do you have under your belt as far as programming, and who is it you work for exactly? Just for the curious techie people out there.
Well, now that I've just made comments about the lack of loyalty of who I work for, I'm not sure I should publicly say where I work.
How about what program language can you write in? Oh, sing that again?
No. Programming languages. So my philosophy on programming languages is that if you know a certain paradigm of programming, then you can move from language to language somewhat fluidly. You look up the syntax, and the hard part is always learning the libraries that are available to you, so you're not building everything from scratch. But a more concrete answer, I guess my most recent work has been in Python, and that's generally personal stuff. At work, the last, I guess, publicly released code I did was in C++. I was a C++ developer for several years. Before that, I did a bit of Java, a bit of C#, a bit of Delphi, which is a flavor of Pascal. And then in school, I don't know, did like a dozen languages in the programming languages class.
There you go, from music talk to tech talk. Since we have not really dropped any names other than Lauren Corn and musical people, let's add another name to the list here. How good a programmer is Dan? Or dear old friend Dan?
I've never actually seen his code, so I've never done a code review. I haven't looked at it. So I can comment on technical knowledge, I suppose, more than coding in particular. He certainly has a very strong grasp of the fundamentals, the techniques that make programs work well. I guess understands what makes them not work well and presumably avoids those things. But again, I've never actually looked at his code. Yeah, from conversations we've had, I think he knows his stuff.
It's another smart guy that, although he's, as far as I know, he's not a musician, but he knows a lot about music. And he has a fairly large music library. So is his books, really. But, yeah. Dan, if you're watching this, hello, and we miss you. Last question for you, Justin Mathews. And I know this is going to be a hell of a fucking answer. I'm looking forward to it. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Do you remember a TV show called Head of the Class on, I think, ABC in the 80s?
I do not.
Okay, so every time I hear that question, what first comes to mind is an episode of that show where one of the characters gave the answer that actuality precedes potentiality. An egg is only a potential chicken while the chicken is an actual chicken, so the actual chicken came first. I don't actually agree with that answer, but that is the answer that comes to mind. The more honest
So what is your answer then?
I think the answer is that they both evolved together. So it wasn't so much that there was a thing that was a fully formed chicken the way we know a chicken today, or a thing that was a fully formed chicken egg the way we know a chicken egg today. But each of these would go through subtle changes as environmental pressures change the ones that survive and the mutations that survive. And so eventually you've got some sort of chicken-like animal that's laying something kind of egg-like. And generations later, you've got something that is a chicken that lays chicken eggs. And there is no came first. They evolved together.
Together.
Come together right now over me.
There you go. Over you.
Over easy?
Ooh, yeah. Angie's breakfast. Let's go.
It's 10 o'clock at night.
So this is, it's actually 11, by the way.
Whatever.
Yes, I get the fucking correct Justin Mathews. Finally. Oh my God, my life is complete. This is by far the fastest time-wise interview I've ever done with anybody. Is there any words of wisdom you'd like to give anybody that's watching this, whether it's about music, relationship, programming, you fucking name it? Here's your PSA moment, sir.
Close your YouTube window. Go do something more interesting.
Such as?
Anything.
Anything like?
Take a nap.
Ooh, napping is good. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Justin Mathews in the closet, in Becky's closet. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us some of your precious time.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Good evening, or good day. Goodbye.